Here at the Australian Music Vault today, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome one of the most enduring talents in the Australian music scene, Ms. Grace Knight. Welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
It's so wonderful to talk to you today and spend time with you, mostly because I'm a massive Eurogliders tragic.
Oh, that's lovely.
But also to find out about the machinations of the Eurogliders. But let's go way back to 1976.
Oh,
Right.
Good luck with that change, but yeah, let's try.
In 76, you end up on a cruise ship floating in Dubai and you meet Martha Reeves and the Vandellas of Jimmy Mac, Nowhere to Run and Dancing in the Street fame. You and Martha connect for many reasons. What was it about meeting Martha Reeves that was pivotal to you and your career?
In the first instance, not many years prior to that, my elder sister and I would hold our hairbrushes, open the curtains of what were called the French windows, which was just glass doors into the dining room. And we'd slide the net curtains, holding our hairbrushes, and my sister would sing all the lead vocals and I would do the harmonies, and she would clip me on the back of the head if I got the harmonies wrong. But Dancing in the Street, Martha and the Vandellas, was one of those tracks. And it was great, you know, we used to sort of do dance movements, you know, choreograph, and we think we were rather wonderful in the mirror. So that already had a really beautiful memory for me. But then just meeting this, you know, terribly famous woman who I was just really happy to go and watch her perform, her and the Vandellas perform. The fact that she came to my gig on the flotel that I was working on, she asked me to come and join her, and I came and sat with them and had a drink with them. And she very generously and kindly said, you've got something there. You know, keep working at it, which was a polite way of saying you've got a long way to go, but if you're enjoying it, keep going. And I just thought that was wonderful. In fact, just her saying that, not even what she said, but the fact that she said it kind of set something off in me, that how important it was to encourage people, other people, and to you know, to encourage them along. And I've always tried to do that ever since Martha Reeves did it to me.
It wasn't your first time on a cruise ship. You'd also appeared a few years previously on one where you'd won a talent contest. But the entertainment director wasn't too impressed with you at that point, was he?
It would have been around about 76, 77. My then boyfriend, who was teaching me how to play guitar, we used to sing in folk clubs, and there was a brewery in England. I can't remember the name of the brewery, but they had a British talent contest across Great Britain. We were performing songs like Proud Mary, and I was playing guitar with the... And once again, I was singing harmonies to him, to his vocals. And anyway, it came to the final, and we were in the final. An agent came from London and offered us a job on what they called a flotel, which was a decommissioned cruise ship in Dubai.
Right.
And then we had to choose, well, do we do the final? Do we go into the finals and possibly win £1,000, which was ever so much money back in those days, or do we go to Dubai? And to me, there was absolutely no question about it. It was, we go to Dubai.
Right.
We get a gig.
Right.
We get paid, and we travel. We go to Arabia. how could we ever have done that?
exotic.
I didn't have 2 shillings to rub together. And now there was an opportunity to go to the United Arabian Emirates. So we went.
So you were on the cruise ship. Sorry, the flotel. Sorry.
The flotel,
You're
yeah.
on the flotel.
Yes.
What happens next?
So I love it. I can't believe that this singing lark, I can travel for nothing. And so while I'm on the flotel, I'm asking questions of some of the other crew and entertainment, the entertainment staff. What do you do? How do you do this? How do I get on a ship to Australia? And they said, well, you go to Chandris Lines for that. And I thought, okay. And so I've now got my boyfriend. I'm saying, okay, I want to go to Australia. My sister was a 10-pound pom. Mm-hmm. I want to go and see my sister. We did want to perform, but we would have taken waiting jobs.
Ah.
We went to the cruise director or whatever he was, entertainment director, sang Proud Mary, blah, 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 doing that again. And we got a gig on the Women's Weekly World Cruise.
Women's Weekly World Cruise.
1977. And the cruise, apart from the crew, most of the passengers were kind of in their 70s, 80s.
Okay.
It wasn't really so many young people cruising back then. And so we're up there singing, left a good job in the city. And the cruise director said, oh, can you change your set? These people aren't, this isn't their bag. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, what do you do for 70-year-olds? I had no idea. Oh, daddy boy, the babes. But we found an album that was A Little Touch of Schmilson in the Night by Harry Nilsson.
Right.
And it was great. We just copied that album verbatim.
Did you have to listen to it in the actual ship? Put it on?
Well, you didn't do that.
No.
You didn't have those.
Did you do that?
You just had, you go like that. And
How
wrote
was the
down the
guitar
lyrics.
playing at this point?
Well, I think that's when I kind of, because my guitar playing was not good, not even close to good, but I think that's when I took over the kind of lead singing, and we were doing Another Bride, Another Groom, Another Sonny, and of course the 70-year-olds loved it.
Wow.
Another season.
What happened to the boyfriend?
He joined a religious cult called the Moonies.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
That was the end of that then.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Manchester where you were born. You began performing in cabaret clubs at the age of 21 with said boyfriend. Where do you think this confidence and this love of putting on a show came from? You talk about grabbing your hairbrush with your sister, but where do you think it came from?
First, I think it's in my blood. I think it's in my DNA. My dad was a singer. His father made records for expat Scots. And my nana was, during the war, when all the men were away, women singers used to dress up in a suit and have a cane and a top hat, and they would sing love songs to the mostly female audiences because most of the men were gone. Mm. I have this kind of thought in my head, it's called a sobran or sobrani singer, but I'm not sure. I just can't remember. So my nana did that. The confidence, that's all it's a con. I actually...
Confidence.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's exactly what it is. I actually don't have confidence. I've been performing for over 40 years and I still think I'm shit. Or not shit. No. I shouldn't say that. I don't think I'm shit. But no one is more surprised than I that this has been my career.
What's your earliest musical memory?
Oh, it might not be a good one. Opera,
Opera.
Yeah.
Hearing opera in the house that
yeah,
you grew up in?
but not in a good way.
Oh, you didn't like opera?
No, I didn't like it at all. But as a child, when the opera music came on, it meant that my father was drunk and that there was likely going to be a bit of biff going on, a bit of violence. And
You've got that connection.
So I had that connection, with the opera. I have since learned to really enjoy, especially opera singers. I've really learned to enjoy them and appreciate what it is they're doing. But when I was young, it was a portend of something really nasty about to happen.
About your school days, you once said, "Don't fight Grace Knight. She's a mental case. She'll knock your block off." Were you really like that, Grace?
I was, yeah,
How so?
I was. And well, I don't like this. And I certainly don't like to admit it, but I was brought up in a violent background. I did see my mum getting beaten, and my mum in turn would beat me, and I in turn beat on people. And because it's what I learned as a little girl. So I was very bolshy, and we fought. And I'm not talking just like a clip. I'm talking like beating, So, and that was actually one of the reasons that I kind of ran away to Australia, was that once I arrived here, no one knew me, and no one knew my history, and I could pretend to be a different person to what I really was, or to how I had behaved up until arriving here, and it was really, with the benefit of hindsight, it was really great that I mixed and I found such beautiful people that really set a really lovely standard that I wanted to kind of achieve. So coming to Australia really gave me that opportunity.
Well, it was the making of a brilliant career. You moved to Perth and you meet the man that would become your co-collaborator and your life partner, Bernie Lynch. You meet him at a barbecue. What was it about Bernie that attracted you to him?
I met him at my sister's house, or my sister introduced him to me. He was a musician, and I had, been playing music. I'd just started to sing. Unbeknownst to me, he fancied me, and he dangled this carrot, like, I'm making a record. Would you like to come and sing backing vocals on it?
Oh, yeah.
And
old chestnut.
That'll always, that'll get it. And I was like, oh my God, make a record. Sure, I'd love it. And of course, he plied me with Stone's green ginger wine.
Oh, gross.
And I remember it was his band was called the Stockings, Rip Torn and the Stockings.
And he was Rip Torn,
He was
wasn't
Rip Torn.
Which is a Hollywood actor name?
That's right.
He was a Hollywood actor's
That's
name.
exactly right. And excuse me, he was Rip Torn, and the song was called Thin Ice. And my part was, I'm on thin ice, and it's breaking up. I'm on thin ice. And that was about all I had to do.
Influenced by Yoko Ono, Walking on Thin Ice?
I think it was, the best, the only bit he could really have a backing vocalist on, to get me in the studio and ply me with alcohol.
So you become an item.
We became an item. Then he split with the Stockings. Actually, I think they might have sacked him because I didn't like his songwriting. I recently found out. And
Thin Ice just didn't cut it,
it
did it?
didn't cut
No.
it. And then he had formed a band called Living Single, and he asked me to come and be the lead vocalist.
Living Single's an unusual name.
Well, not that unusual because there was a band in the UK called Living Single, and so we knew that, you know, we wanted world domination, so we thought, oh, we're going to have to change our name, and then that's when Eurogliders was born.
You knew you wanted world domination.
Well, we were going to aim for it, yeah.
So
we didn't know we were going to get it, but
be careful what you wish for.
Well, as I say, we didn't want to sort of turn up in the UK and there be another band. You know, the aim was certainly to go to the UK.
So you chose Eurogliders, which was, I believe, pulled out of a hat with random words.
Yep.
But it was perfect for the band, wasn't it?
Wasn't it?
Fear seems to weave a thread in your entire career. You've kind of touched on it already, but you've talked about in the past of being petrified as a lead vocalist in a band and always having to pretend you're someone you're not. And in fact, the debut single for Eurogliders, Without You, 1982, has the verse, I don't want to go out at midnight, I'm scared. What's this fear and where does it come from?
Whew. Do you know, I'm not even sure I've thought about it. Other than, and it's kind of always with the benefit of hindsight, other than it's really served me well, this fear. I guess fear of being, you know, caught at being a fraud, maybe. You know, that, as I say, I never felt like I was a great singer. I always did my best, but, you know, I always felt that one day I'm going to get caught.
They call that imposter syndrome, don't they, these days?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe I felt a bit like an imposter. I don't know. But having said that, there's also part of me that really rises to those challenges. It's the same kind of, it's a bit like, you know, running away from the Grace that used to be a fighter and a bully. I think it's all kind of mishmashed into one's personality, and as you kind of get older and hopefully a bit wiser, you can, you know, sort through it or appreciate some of the things you've been able to do with it, like naivety. I think naivety is one of the most wonderful tools because you're allowed to make mistakes if you're naive about something, and from those mistakes or from those trials, you can, you know, beautiful things can be born.
Yeah. You've also talked about being a storyteller and that you could use the craft of storytelling to create a persona that you could stand in front of the audience and be a pop star.
Yeah, because I was always struggling with this fear, and it was immense fear of messing up and not doing the job or being caught or being found out not to be so good. So I would use a number of methods to push myself through that. One of those things was to create clothes that, as I was creating the clothes, I was actually creating a character. And I could hide inside that character, and whatever those clothes looked like to me, or the the sort of character that might wear those clothes, then I could take on that persona.
Ah, so it's theatre in a sense.
It
Theatre,
is,
performing,
and
yeah.
it's storytelling.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Without You, your first single, debut single, got picked up by Countdown straight away. And you were guaranteed an audience once you went out there, once you'd been on Countdown. We have to quantify just how big Countdown was in that time, in that day. Things completely changed for you overnight, didn't they?
Look, a Countdown, Molly Meldrum were absolutely massive. They were so important to the pop industry, really important. Really important for the people that got on the shows. So we were a band in Perth. We felt like we were isolated because we were so far away from the rest of Australia. There were no A&R people in WA. All the signings were in the eastern states. They had record company reps, but the A&R people would come over from the east. So they weren't there following bands, watching the growth of a band or anything like that.
How did it get to the point where you got signed for Without You to get onto Countdown?
It was a wonderful, wonderful chap called Brooke Massey who worked for Polygram Music, who loved us, and we loved him, and he came to all our gigs. He was such an incredible supporter. And he was calling his record company executives saying, you've got to check out this band. And it was through him that we had people come over and see us. And we signed to Polygram. Then we got onto Countdown. And then we were on the road to becoming a band that, you know, could make a living out of being a band.
And make a living you did. I mean, it just seems that there was that period between 84 and 88, maybe even a little bit before, when Eurogliders were part of the Australian music tapestry. And what was so brilliant about the Eurogliders, I think, from an outsider's point of view, is the harmonies that you talk about, but also you're a synth-pop band. And they were brilliantly crafted pop songs from start to finish. And not only yourself and Bernie, I guess that creative dynamic that you had, but with the addition of Amanda Vincent on keyboards, what wasn't to like? Do you know what I mean? And it always seemed that you were having a great time on stage. There was so much fun. It perfectly encapsulated the 1980s, I feel.
Ah, that's lovely. Look, Bernie Lynch is an incredible writer. When he would write a song, and, you know, I can vouch for this because I was there. I was married to him. He would, you know, be up in our bedroom and have his headphones on, and I'd be trying to sleep, and this is all I could hear. And I'd learned to sleep through that. But it was him, and he'd be playing in the drum parts, the bass parts, guitar parts, keyboard parts, writing the lyrics, singing the harmonies. And, you know, he might have been a little bit precious about his work because he did put, you know, when he gave it to the band, it was almost complete, even with my vocals. And which is just to go back to when he asked me to join Eurogliders, I never understood why, because he is such a great singer. He's a really good singer. And I thought, what, why? You know, you don't just go out and sing yourself. But then I didn't realise at the time the whole thing of, you know, a front person was.
Which is what you were, Grace Knight. You were the perfect front person
that
for
was
that
my
band.
job. That was my job. And yeah, and one of the reasons I was so kind of athletic and boisterous on stage was because I didn't think I was that great a singer, and I better do something entertaining.
I loved your dancing. I loved it. I loved all. I used to emulate this.
I don't.
Love to say it. It was brilliant.
That's not how I dance when I'm out there, just by the way. I'll just tell you that.
What set you apart from everybody else in the Australian music scene at that point? The songwriting, the harmonies, the synth-pop sounds,
I was going to say...
choruses.
Yeah, those kind of anthemic...
They are anthemic.
Choruses. I mean, they're pop songs. They have a... there's a process, there's a recipe. It goes intro, verse, might have a little tag, another verse, chorus, back to the verse, and choruses by 2, 3 or 4, and then outro, and you're gone. Bernie was brought up singing in church. So he was very... he had this really beautiful connection with harmony. Really, I mean, it's gorgeous. I love it. And so he would introduce that into the choruses. He would also introduce things like rhythmic sounds that, unless you're really, really listening or searching for them, you don't even hear them until they're missing.
Absolutely. The song Absolutely has got that dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. It's hard to describe, but it's that little, it's a musical.
I'm trying to find it, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Those little nuances that go throughout the song. So subtle, but so effective.
Yeah, but he would also do that with vocals.
Right.
As well. So, you know, even recently I would be singing, ooh, 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 and you say, okay, can you double that? Yeah, sure. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Now can you do it in half? Ooh, 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 like this. And then before you know it, you've got this mass kind of, this wall of sound, ooh, 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 which I can't harmonise. But it's just, I love it. And there's something, when I'm performing that, or when I'm performing it in a studio to record it, I can. It's just wonderful. It's a really. How do I describe it? There's something that kind of takes me, kind of out. I don't know, outside of my own body. You know, just, and I'm sure it's got something to do with the breath, the control of the breath, and then the doubling up, different of harmonies. And you're hearing all of this kind of inside your head, but inside your body as well. And, you know, you're kind of holding your stomach and creating that chop off of the breath. There's something quite meditative about it, and it just takes you. Wow. It's lovely. I quite love it.
How did you find Amanda Vincent? Because as I said, it was just wonderful having 2 women in that band. And she was an amazing keyboardist and another great focal point, I thought, as a young child watching, as a female. How did you find Amanda?
Amanda scared me.
Why?
Amanda scared me intellectually. I always had the impression that she used to kind of use her intellect to degrade people, and I felt like I was one of those people that she was happy to do that to. She frightened me because she was a feminist. I didn't understand what a feminist was, but it was more of a tool that Amanda would use as another kind of weapon, you know, that I often felt, you know, not dumb, but maybe I felt a bit dumb around Amanda. So I didn't feel close to Amanda at all, and she certainly didn't feel close to me. But we, you know, I would, you know, design clothes for her to wear on stage, and I guess we would put up with each other.
Isn't that interesting? It's so interesting to hear that you didn't get on that great. I think of other bands, you know, there was Deborah Conway and Helen Carter in Do Re Mi at that time, and there was also Zan and Kate from I'm Talking, and obviously there's yourself and Amanda, and it's interesting to hear that what we saw on stage wasn't translating so much. There was no common...
what you were seeing on stage was real. There was no pretense. We both loved what we were doing, both of us. We very much loved what we were doing. So what you were seeing was real. And don't get me wrong, we didn't despise each other, and we never had words, harsh words. And the reason for that was more to do with the fact that we both loved what we were doing and needed to get on with each other. At least needed to, you know, keep our thoughts to ourselves.
Was there camaraderie with other women in the music industry at that point? I mentioned a few in the other bands. Did you find that, or was it very competitive at that point?
I actually didn't see many other bands. And I didn't see many other bands for a couple of reasons. One was the last thing I needed or wanted was to go out and hear music on my 2 nights off a week. I just didn't want the noise in my head. I wanted silence. You know, I'd spend 4 or 5 days a week screaming my head off to try to hear myself. And when I wasn't working, I just wanted silence and to rest my voice. The other part of that, of not going to see bands, was I was so insecure with my own performance. I always felt like I wasn't good enough when I saw, I mean, you know, go and look at Chrissy Amphlett. I was just like, oh, I might as well go and cut my wrists. You know, I mean, she was phenomenal.
She was a rock singer, Grace.
Yeah, she was a rock singer.
Of course she was performing.
Yes, and she was gorgeous, and she was all of that. But I didn't need to see that because I just needed to do what I do. Mm-hmm. And I, right from the very word go, I kind of gave myself this bottom line in my own kind of measurement of myself was, if people don't like you, they're not going to put their hand in their pocket and spend their wages to come and see you. And they're not going to spend their wages buying your album. When that stops, that's when it's time to give up.
Right.
Touch wood. I mean, and it's great. It's a really logical. I'm not terribly logical, but that's a really good, you know, kind of baseline.
Every interview you've ever done in your career talks about 1984 and the song Heaven.
Yep.
A song that got to number 2 on the charts. And I heard that song absolutely. In fact, I still hear it to this day. But I remember in 1984, I think 3XY in Melbourne were playing it at least 25 times a day. I mean, it was everywhere. It literally was the summer anthem for that year. What does that song mean to you now?
I love it. I just completely love it. Recently, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I looked over at Bernie, and Bernie and I have been, you know, we've been to the top of the mountain and we've been down the bottom of the valley, and we're still here, and we're still performing 40 years later, and we love each other very, very much. We drive each other insane. But I looked over at him while the audience was singing Heaven. And I was just saying, look, I was just wondering, what do you wrote this. You wrote those bell...
Those bells.
You wrote all of this, and 40 years later, you know, there's 15,000 people out there and they're all singing it. What on earth is going through you? Have you forgotten? Do you remember? My heart was just bursting out of me. I was like, and I was really proud of him, actually. And it's just wonderful. I love it. I've never tired of that song, especially when the audience
singing it back to you. Yeah. I mean, it really is an anthem. It's an 80s anthem.
Yeah.
And your ooh-oohs, I can't do them half as well as you, but yeah, the ooh-oohs, the bells, the chorus.
Yeah.
Do you remember first recording that song or first hearing it when Bernie presented it to you?
No.
Right.
No. But I remember recently going, fuck, there's not much of a verse here. Ooh, ooh, I want to find a better place. Verse 1.
I'm tired of living.
Verse 2, I'm tired of living in the sand. I'm searching for a better land. Well done. I'm always trying to escape. I never know which road to take. Okay. This songwriting lark's not that difficult, is it? But of course it is. And then that's when I say to myself, yeah, it's how you sing it.
That's right. That's right. It's how you sing it. Do you still get a thrill when you hear your songs on radio?
No.
No?
No. I don't.
Do you hate it? Do you not like it?
I want them to be played and I like them to be played. I just can't bear to hear myself.
Why?
Because I just hear things that I could have done better or...
Self-critical, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all right. Part of the job. Get on with it. I don't mean you. I mean, that's part of the job.
Oh. In the same breath, the We Will Together video always gets talked about.
Yeah.
We don't need to go there. We know...
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do need to go there.
No.
I just want to say 2 words about that video. I mean...
Budgie smugglers?
Thank you. The colour of the budgie smugglers, Grace. They were horrible. They were green.
They're green,
and
yeah.
Bernie's got red hair and he's got green budgie smugglers.
And pure white skin.
And he's skinny. I even remember thinking as a child seeing that and going, that's just so wrong on so many levels.
Yeah. So you write the storyboard. Well, we didn't. The producer wrote the storyboard of how he wanted this video to look. And we're going, oh, yeah, right. Yeah, it is a love story. It is a love song. And it should be treated as such. It should be, it should have some parts in the video clip alluding to it being a love song, which was all fine when I was in a relationship with Bernie. In the ensuing couple of weeks, Bernie and I have finished, that's it, on your way, you're on your way.
What led to you finishing up?
Oh, boredom, I
Boredom?
suppose.
You were bored with each other?
Yeah. I think we forgot to try, both of us forgot to try, or decided we couldn't be bothered to try. Anyway, and that was fine. But we both loved what we were doing, so we wanted to, keep it going.
The Eurogliders
Yeah.
creativity going.
Yeah.
And the train.
Anyway, so meanwhile, Bernie's got over, his broken heart very fucking quickly, let me tell you, way too quickly for my liking. This is like a couple of weeks.
Right.
And his new girlfriend is standing off camera in a doorway while we're filming this love scene.
They weren't love scenes, Grace. It was semi-porn.
Was it?
Porn.
Didn't feel like porn. Oh, come on, give me a break. Bullshit, porn. Have you seen what's going on now?
This was the 80s, Grace. I was a young child.
Yeah. No, that's not porn. God, you could do that in a fucking cornflake commercial nowadays. But so his new, love
His
interest.
new squeeze.
Love interest is standing in the doorway, watching us making this love scene, doing this love scene. And I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh, but I couldn't say, can you get rid of your squid? I can't say her name, but could you ask her to leave, please? I feel uncomfortable. Because that would have given away something about me. So I didn't want,
didn't want that insecurity.
I'm way too strong for that to bother me, which of course it was. So Bernie's lying on top, kiss, 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 which I was used to. We were married, it was all right. Only now I was drunk, so it was like, oh, come on, just do it, get it over with. I was drinking champagne, I remember. Anyway, so he's on top of me and his lady friend is standing in the doorway, and it just overwhelmed me. I just felt that I had to get my power back and get my strength back. So I flipped Bernie over and I lay on top of him thinking, oh, right, I can breathe now, because it feels like I'm in control. Like that kind of thing. Anyway, and that was all fine. We filmed it, sent it off to America, and they said, we can't play this. X rating. And we're like...
I told you it was soft porn, Grace. You didn't believe me.
Well, they thought it was soft porn. But you know why they thought it was soft porn? Because I was on top. Had Bernie been on top, it would have been okay. That's the truth.
No women on top.
Women don't go on top
US
in America.
television.
No. You're a receiver. American women in the 80s were the receivers. They weren't the givers.
It was the done thing, though, for bands that had success, reached a certain level of success in Australia, to then try for the US market.
Yeah.
You actually did quite well with several of your songs in the US. How did it, looking back, how did it all work out for you in the end?
It was fantastic, first and foremost. It was great playing to American audiences. We were invited to do the MTV New Year's Eve show, which the MTV kind of had as a, they would pick one band every year to be their next,
Next big thing.
Big band, yeah. And they chose us, which was incredible.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
We performed to, this is obviously before the internet, and we were performing to like 65 million people across the world. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was, and it was live, which, I was absolutely petrified. I was completely petrified, even more so because my monitors weren't working.
Oh.
And I couldn't hear myself, and I just had to keep ploughing through going, oh, I can't hear.
Oh.
But anyway.
Can we mention Ron Francois, your bass player, for just a moment? Because in Australian music at that point, there wasn't a lot of people of colour on stage. I think it was yourself and Wah Wah Nee with the Sween, the drummer.
Yep.
I can remember. So he actually, again, brought another really great focal point to the band.
Ron was a brilliant bass player, brilliant singer, brilliant performer, and it was, when things were good, it was incredible performing with him. He was amazing. When he wasn't happy, it wasn't a happy place.
I mentioned Wah Wah Nee. At one point, you were both managed, yourself, Eurogliders and Wah Wah Nee were managed by Sweet Conspiracy, because Steve Williams talks at length about being managed by the Eurogliders Management Sweet Conspiracy. Can you shed light on who Sweet Conspiracy were?
Well, they were our managers. I don't know. I think I might get in trouble if I...
Because?
Look... Oh, dear. I did a terrible thing.
Not you,
Well,
Grace.
it's that
no.
song, babe, you done a bad thing. Yep. I was so unhappy with our management. I kept trying to convince Bernie that we needed to move on, because no matter how much we performed, and as I said earlier, we were performing 5, 6 nights, sometimes a week. No matter how much we performed, we never had any money, ever. So for 10 years, I think I earned $300 a week. And out of that $300, I would also make all my stage outfits and stuff like that. I was terribly unhappy with them, and then it just came to the point. Bernie just wasn't going to move. He, for some reason, I don't know why, he was okay with them, and I just said, well, I don't want to be represented by these people, so you need to sort that out. I'll go somewhere else, and I think that was the outcome of that. So because I was so annoyed about the money and the lack of it and the amount of work that we were doing, and I wasn't, it didn't make any, I wasn't great at maths, but it didn't make any sense how much we were working and how much we didn't have in our bank account. And I wanted to make my thoughts about management known, and they weren't being heard. And my manager left his briefcase at the back of a stage. You know this, don't you? Should I not?
I think you should tell the story. It's wonderful.
He left his briefcase backstage on this tent tour that we were doing that was costing us tens of thousands of dollars. You know, it was a mad idea, but anyway, we were doing it. And he left it backstage, and I was just so completely over it. I was so annoyed and very, very angry that I put a poo in his briefcase. And I know it's not, I know that's not the done thing in polite society. I do understand that. But I was very, you have to understand how angry I was. And I had no recourse. And I wanted it to stay there. I didn't want him to open his briefcase and go, that looks like a poo. So I hid it. And there's not many places to hide a poo in a briefcase. And I'm not a nice person. I've never said I was, so I'll just keep going on with this story. There was a box of tissues, not unlike this one I'm using now, and I lifted up, except it had an opening here, like that, and I lifted the tissues and I gently placed the child inside, closed it, put it back in his briefcase, and then I, early the next morning, our tour manager said, oh, look, we've got your briefcase here, come and get it. He came and got it. Next morning, we were in Canberra or Adelaide, I can't remember. I opened my hotel curtain and I saw Wawani with our manager driving the Tarago, and there in the back window in the sun was his briefcase. And those poor people, poor Wawani, I didn't think about them. They hadn't crossed my mind. but they had to drive from Adelaide to Sydney with the poo. And even worse, about 4 days later, our tour manager went, "You've got a tear in your eye."
God, it's so funny.
Our tour manager went into my manager's office and he said the smell of poo was just so awful. And our manager at the time said, "I don't know. This smell of poo followed me since we left Adelaide." And anyway, I did tell Paul Gray about it.
What was his reaction?
He just said it was fantastic. He loved it. He said it wasn't so good at the time,
Sure.
but the whole notion of placing such a soft child in our manager's briefcase was...
Well, while we're talking about naughty things you've done, you became a kleptomaniac when you were in Eurogliders, didn't
Oh,
you?
dear. Oh, no. I think this is something I'm not going to admit to. Like what?
Stealing hotel furniture?
Excuse me. I doubt that. I don't... No.
Isn't it true that you had like a truck or a Tarago that you used to fancy a sofa in a hotel and go, well, that'll look good in my house, and almost furnished your entire home with bits you've picked up off the road?
Who have you been talking to? These are backstage stories. Anyway, it's true. Well,
We can talk about it now.
I mentioned that we had $300 a week. And as I say, I had to get fabric to make clothes out of. That left us with very little. And so, yes, I decorated our apartment, our house, with stolen furniture. And I used to travel with a screwdriver set so that I could take... I was a thief, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I was a thief. I included sheets, linen, bed linen, sofas, tables, paintings that were screwed to the... This is before... Really, I'm not proud of this. I'm laughing.
Oh, my God, I'm sorry. It's so funny because...
I know, but this was before they had... this is before they had security cameras. And I remember there was a hotel in Perth, I'm not going to say the name, and it had these, on every single floor, it had these beautiful wooden, they looked like religious icon type. They weren't religious.
Like Mary's or
They
similar?
looked like that, but they weren't. They were
Right.
more like knights in armour and things, but they had kind of a bit of gold work around them. And they were brightly coloured and they were wood, and they were just gorgeous. And I knew that they'd look good in my hallway. So you'd be in there with leaning on the...
Did you ever get caught or be like, what would you do if someone came by? No, nothing going on here.
No, and I'm saying we because I'm trying to disguise the fact that it really was only me that did it. It was me. But I would take things like up in Queensland where they would have mosquito netting, but they would have these beautiful frameworks to hang the mosquito. It would all go in the truck. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I was a thief. And had I not come to Australia, I would have been in prison for being a thief.
Right.
I started at a young age stealing, and I was very good at it. I was very sneaky. And I'm sorry. Cookware? Cutlery?
Jeez.
I don't think there was anything in my house that was actually bought.
I'm just going to check that my wallet's still in my bag right now.
Do.
What did Bernie think about all this?
He loved it.
Oh.
He loved it. And Bernie's such a wuss. he would say, yeah, do it. And he
encourage
would
you.
scuttle me out the door,
Oh,
as he did with the poo in the briefcase, I might add. The whole band were behind that, and all it became to me was a challenge.
right.
When everyone's going, yeah, all I wanted to do was please my peers.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted.
Very much so.
I've learned since then.
Oh, my goodness. You and Bernie, on again, off again, married, break up, back together. You're destined to be in each other's lives in some way, shape or form, aren't you? I mean, you're still friends to this day.
Yeah.
The last record absolutely was 88, but then there's no releases for some time because you and Bernie go off to do other things.
Yeah, that's right. And but we never officially closed Eurogliders. Bernie and I didn't talk with each other for an amount of time, maybe 15 years or so. And I can't remember why, to be honest with you. I just can't remember why, or I can't be bothered to think why. But the beginning of me going off doing something else and Bernie then also doing something else was when the ABC offered me to sing the backing track to Come In Spinner, which I wasn't interested in doing. And once again, I was absolutely petrified and thought, well, I've never listened to kind of jazz music. Well, I don't know anything about it. All I was interested in was acting. And I wanted the opportunity to have the cameo role of Lola, the barroom manager or barroom singer. And that was the only. I thought, well, if I can get, the cameo acting role, I'll just go in and do my best with the singing. But I was concerned for the lady, Diana Manson, who asked me. I thought she might get the sack for choosing such a shit choice, making a shit choice. And I did even say to her, I think Kate Sobrano's the one for this. And she went, no, I think you're the one for this. And I was like, well, you can back out whenever you want. Just let me know. And I even said to Bernie, because we were still mates, I said, can you come in the studio and just pretend that, there's documents for me to sign or something like that. And that's what he did. He just shook his head and said, no, you're on your own.
You got this.
Yeah, go and do it.
That's a career trajectory that has seen you release 9 jazz albums and really been embraced by the jazz world.
Are they jazzed? I don't know. I don't know what jazz is. I honestly, I don't know.
Solo career?
Yeah, I definitely had a solo career. And I'm so grateful that I had that courage to walk through that door and that kind of attitude of, well, if someone doesn't like it, they'll tell me. And you've got to be able to take a no. And especially when you're petrified, it's like you've just got to bear yourself and just say, well, this is it. You take it or leave it. And as I say, I was absolutely petrified. And
did Vince Jones have some words for you when you were doing Come In Spinner?
Yeah, he did. And I asked him for some words. I asked him, if there was any advice, that he could give me. Especially as Bernie wasn't there to help. I'd never recorded with anyone, only Bernie. And now I'm here with, orchestras and, producers that I don't know and a singer that I didn't know. And I asked, well, we never actually sang together, so he would do some vocals, and then when he'd finished his, we would cross through the green room. And I asked him, if he could give me any guidance or tips? And he said, yeah, don't over-sing. And just kept walking. And I was like, oh, fuck, I couldn't over-sing if I wanted to. I'm not that sort of singer, so that didn't help. And so I thought, just get on with it. Just, do your best.
And get on with it, you did. You, to date, have sung for the late Princess Diana, true?
Mm.
What was that like?
It was a gig.
What did you sing?
Heaven.
Heaven.
Yeah,
Was that the
I
Rock
think
and
it
the Royals?
The bicentennial.
Oh, the bicentennial.
I think.
Okay. The Thai royal family?
Yep, for their charity for street kids.
And 5 Australian Prime Ministers.
Yep. Paul Keating was the one I was most kind of pleased to sing for. Bob Hawke was just, he was a much better Prime Minister than he was singer. Let's put it that
Did he
way.
try and sing with you?
Yeah.
How?
Well, at my encouragement, I'm ashamed to say, we were bringing, we were in an airport hangar I think it might have been an airport hangar when the Australian Olympic team were coming back from the Olympics somewhere. And I think we were singing Advance Australia Fair for them. And I'm so sorry, I can't remember who else was there, but I remember saying to Bob, look, just follow me, or, and when I give you a squeeze, shush. And when I give you another squeeze, like I'll do it behind your back so you'll know. And I gave him a squeeze to go right now, and I went, fuck, shut up. Maybe not, Bob. But, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
God bless him.
Oh, and President Clinton.
Yep.
What happened there?
This was before the blue dress
Oh,
broke.
Monica Lewinsky scandal.
And it was just before that.
Right.
James Morrison and I were there in the Great Hall at Parliament House. And it was very kind of, security men, hundreds of them, talking down their armholes. And we were told, okay, you do your song and then you stand on stage, you shut up, just stand there until Bill and Hillary leave, and then you'll be allowed to leave.
Okay.
So we're like, yeah, okay. And and so we did our song. And I remember looking at Hillary, and she was kind of a bit scowly, like, ooh. And I was like, oh, fuck, she's not in a good mood. And I sort of turned and looked at everyone else. And then we finished, and then the room's deathly quiet, and I hear this, Grace. And I'm like, oh, no, who's that? And I'm thinking the room is full of business people and CEOs that have paid ever so much money to come to this gig. And I can hear this foot, Grace, like this. And I'm like, oh, fucking shut up. And I put my head down, trying to say to whoever's calling my name, shut up. I've got to stand here. And so I'm not looking up. And then, Grace, do you want to meet Bill? And I looked up like this, and it's John Howard.
Oh!
And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And so I was like, okay, we'll go meet Bill. And then I turned to walk, and then I think James went, right, I'm going too. And we're walking. And we met Bill and Hillary, and they walked out of the building, and we were still doing what we were told, waiting for them to leave. And then Bill comes walking quickly back, and whispers like really far too close, and I'm never going to tell anyone what he said. so don't ask.
Was it a little, it sounds like, I mean,
And,
is
no,
it
and
what
he
I think
whispered,
it is?
no, it's not what you think
Oh,
it is.
okay.
And he whispered in my ear, and I kind of went, oh, shouldn't you be doing something about Kosovo? And that's what he did. He went, huh?
Let me just put my drawer back in my face.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. And then, of course, long after that, Hillary, the blue dress
Scandal
broke.
ensued, and
Yes.
it all
And
made
then
sense,
I went,
right? I'm going to go a bit James Lipton on you, Grace Knight. I'm going to do a rapid fire round. Quick questions with quick answers. First concert you went to?
It was the Drifters at the Meccano Ballroom in Stevenage.
Wow.
The Drifters. Yeah.
Something you did as a teenager that you could never do now?
Steal.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Where there's a will, there's a way.
I like that. What's the biggest misconception about you?
That I was a bit posh. Yeah, I'm as surprised as you are, yeah.
Posh. What's next for Grace Knight?
Retirement would be next.
And that fear that has plagued you all your life, is it still there?
Yeah.
Do you think it'll ever leave?
When I retire. I think it'll go when I retire.
Yeah.
No, I'll probably find something else to be frightened of.
Yes.
I think that's part of being a bit creative.
And that sister that you sung with the hairbrush, the Martha Reeves songs, how does she view your career? What does she think about it all?
I think she would probably think that I was lucky to have had a job that I loved so much for my whole life. I think she would think that that was great.
Grace Knight, we've been really lucky to have you here at the Australian Music Vault today. I have thoroughly enjoyed spending time with you. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you very much.